Huge news about RFK Jr.'s campaign. There's two things that have happened here. We're going to talk about the Kennedy family first. So for one, I don't remember all of the members of the Kennedy family joining together to make a public endorsement of a presidential candidate. Don't get me wrong, here and there may have been a couple of them that have made an endorsement, but for the most part, this is the first time I've seen where all of them have seemed to come together and decide to coalesce, along Joe Biden, which is really, really interesting. And they are doing this on purpose. I believe this is being done to put pressure on RFK Jr. to drop out of the campaign. Now, I don't support RFK Jr. for president, but I think the gymnastics that is happening around this to push third party and independent candidates to drop out of these races just so Joe Biden can have an easier chance of winning in November, I think is absolutely ridiculous. Let people run, let them do what they want to do. And I don't think that RFK Jr. dropping out of this campaign is actually going to help Joe Biden. I think if anything, that actually might hurt Joe Biden. Most of the RFK Jr. supporters that I have spoken to said that if RFK Jr. is not in this race, they would actually support Donald Trump. So I don't think this would really help Joe Biden in the way that they think it would. However, here it is. Members of RFK Jr.'s family, oh God, this is Kerry Kennedy here speaking. They've all gotten together now to come out and offer their support for Joe Biden publicly. Listen to this.
As Donald Trump proudly brags about overturning Roe v. Wade, rolling back the clock 50 years to when women couldn't make our own healthcare decisions, President Biden is fighting to get our freedoms back. Thank you, Joe Biden.
She conveniently leaves out that the Democratic Party could have codified Roe v. Wade into law decades ago. The Democratic Party could have tried to do this the very first year when the Democrats had control of the House. This
is only part of the very long list of freedoms and rights that President Biden is protecting during a period of constant assault. Make no mistake, all these rights and freedoms are on the ballot in November. Donald Trump is running to take us backwards, attacking the most basic rights and freedoms that are at the core of who we are as Americans. He said he will be a dictator on day one, even saying he wants to suspend the Constitution so he can go after his enemies, after his critics, after the press. He is running to use his power to punish his enemies, silence his opponents, and incite more chaos, division, and political violence with his extreme agenda. He is the most anti-democratic president in American history.
And what they're doing right now is not anti-democratic. Everybody coming together. And by the way, it's not just the Kennedy family members. There's also environmental organizations that are pressuring RFK Jr. to drop out of the presidential race. I kid you not. Environmental organizations. I guess they seem to be okay with Joe Biden approving the Willow Project, approving more drilling projects. I've often said this, many times before. Some of these organizations, some of like the Sunshine Movement, I talked about them before. Some of them also, they're shady. They're shady. They say they care about environmental rights, but they're supporting someone who's obviously going against those environmental rights.
President Trump spews dangerous conspiracy theories on climate change, vaccines, windmills, and voter fraud. He is pledging to repeal the Affordable Care Act and cut Social Security and Medicare, ripping away health care and earned benefits for millions of Americans who rely.
Pause. Did she make this public speech when Joe Biden threatened to remove Social Security and Medicare for people? When he made that speech on the Senate floor, did she come up and make this kind of speech then? Did she make this kind of speech last year when Joe Biden cut Medicaid? when Joe Biden actually kicked people off of Snap? Did she make the speech about Joe Biden?
Eye on them in their retirement. I can only imagine how Donald Trump's outrageous lies and behavior would have horrified my father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, who proudly served as the Attorney General of the United States and honored his pledge to uphold the law and protect the country.
RFK probably also would be horrified by the fact that so many politicians are taking money from the Israeli lobby today.
Daddy stood for equal justice, for human rights, and freedom from want and fear, just as President Biden does today. Donald Trump mocks these values just as he mocks our system of laws. He predicted a bloodbath if he loses the election. We cannot afford to ignore his warning. We can say today with no less.
That's a misquote. I'm sorry, I do have to debunk that. And again, I don't even support Donald Trump. Hasn't that been debunked multiple times? That was a little soundbite that CNN chose to air and leave out the context of that discussion where he was talking about the auto workers. He was talking about what it would be like for them if he were to lose. And she's repeating that same talking point. Interesting, huh?
Urgency that our rights and freedoms are once again in peril. This is why we all need to come together in a campaign that should unite not only Democrats, but all Americans, including Republicans and independents who believe in what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature. A vote.
Here they go, quoting dead presidents.
A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for our democracy and our decency.
It's hilarious to me how they continue to talk about democracy, but here they are trying to push other people out of the race. That's not democracy. It's not democracy when you tell people that they shouldn't be able to be on the ballot. How is that democracy? Again, I don't even support RFK Jr., but this is ridiculous. This is absolutely, yes, thank you, Oz. It's pathetic. It's pathetic and it's embarrassing. Really. I don't know what they think this is supposed to do. I really don't. And people are like, RFK Jr.'s family doesn't even approve of what he's doing. And you know how many people are still close to their family members? Don't you know when people become adults, especially once you get to like a certain age, a lot of people, once they get into like that 30-ish age range or whatever, not everybody is close to their family members. Not everybody stays close to their family members. Hell, I got friends haven't seen their family in over 10 years. So I don't get it. I don't get the comments. I don't get those kind of remarks like his family doesn't approve. He's a grown ass man. And here we go again. You're going to see RFK Jr.'s brother calling him out. Like, this is just so sad. They came and got all these people out the woodwork. You're really, really, really trying. They're really trying.
Yeah, I know.
We cannot do anything that in any way strips even one vote from President Biden. And a guy, you put the name Kennedy on the ballot and Democrats are going to feel torn. And
bruh, it's 2024, son. It is 2024. You know, one thing I noticed about the Kennedy family, they still act like, every time you speak, every time you make an appearance, you ain't got to bring up but the Kennedy days and the Democrat days with JFK, RFK. You ain't got to bring them up every time. People have moved on and moved forward. And sometimes a legacy is just a legacy. And you have to learn from that and move forward. Now, they want to talk about some of the things that JFK did, but they want to leave other things out. They want to leave out the fact that JFK was against AIPAC, that JFK actually wanted it to register as a foreign agent. Back then it had a different name, but he wanted it to register as a foreign. They won't mention that, though. RFK Jr. does all these interviews and says, my father this, my uncle that. But when it comes to how they felt about AIPAC, the Israeli lobby, how they felt about the state of Israel, that information is left out. But we need to move forward. Now, I get sick of it. I live right here in Massachusetts. I get tired of it. It gets old. Same thing with Joseph Kennedy III when he ran against Ed Markey. He wasn't even running on anything. He was just running on the fact that he was a Kennedy. He was already in the House. He's like, I'm going to try to get Ed Markey's seat and I'm going to win because I'm a Kennedy and all the young people are going to come out and vote for me. Bruh, no, you didn't have any platform. It's just, I'm tired of it. And if you lived here in Massachusetts, you would get tired of it too. They didn't like, oh, they're Kennedy. They get this, they get that. So apparently because you're a Kennedy, you're supposed to follow a certain path.
We are trying to make them understand that this is an issue that they do not have to feel torn about. That the entire Kennedy family, every single one of us, in every family, have all supported President Biden. I've never heard of that before in my family.
Would you encourage
So you're a cult.
your brother to drop out?
Of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Of course I would.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I know.
We cannot do anything.
And I think he's on hold up. Is he on crutches? I think I missed that the first time I saw this video. I think he is on crutch. Let me hold up. Let's see. 1 second. Let's go all the way over. What is in his hand? They went up to this guy when he's on crutches. This is how desperate they are. And wait till you hear the other news that I'm going to share with you, because I'm going to show you why they're doing what they're doing, right? So here's the RFK Jr. surprise, folks. Wait for it. RFK Jr. secures ballot access in battleground state of Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a game changer. Because prior to this, he was on the ballot in Utah. I told you that he qualified in reference to signatures in Arizona, but I don't think he has the ballot access just yet. I don't know what the holdup is with that, but you know how these things go. But now he has actually secured ballot access in a swing state, and not just any swing state, Michigan. Remember what I told you? Joe Biden has to win Michigan in order to win. So now everybody coming out, they didn't win and got the whole damn Kennedy clan. Like they got everybody, all of them, Tom, Dick, Harry, John, Rob, everybody come get together and make it public and let everybody know that the Kennedy family supports Joe Biden for re-election. And we do not support what RFK Jr. is doing. This is just ridiculous. It just, I don't know, but this is huge. And we're going to get into this because I'm going to tell you, there's a lot to be said. Independent presidential candidate RFK Jr. has secured a place on the ballot in the battleground state of Michigan. Kennedy's independent bid has spooked allies of both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, the presumptive Democratic and Republican nominees who fear his last name and dedicated support among a slice of disaffected voters will be enough to tip the election. So let's go ahead and bring up this. And thank you so much for saying this, Roger. Someone tell RFK's brother the Electoral College vote selects the president. So all of this peeling votes away is BS. And the Electoral College vote is supposed to go by the popular vote. But very good point there, because I think what Roger is saying is that third party and independent candidates haven't won Electoral College votes, right? But so they're basically saying that RFK Jr. being in this race alone is going to hurt. Basically, they're saying Joe Biden, right? But then that pressure should be put on Joe Biden for him to be a better president. Joe Biden would be in this situation if he hadn't reneged on some of his campaign promises. He wouldn't be in this situation if it wasn't for the way that he's reacting in reference to Israel and Gaza if it wasn't for inflation, which is back again, increasing again, by the way, it wasn't for this war in Ukraine, if it wasn't for a lot of these things that Joe Biden has had happen under his presidency, continuing some of Donald Trump's tax cuts. These are things that he is responsible for. You know, the first year the president is, or their first year that they're in office, I think it's fair to kind of point to and say, well, this was left over from the previous administration, but there are things that you can do by executive order. And she talked about healthcare. I don't see Joe Biden fixing things with healthcare either. Really, like people are like, well, the prescription drugs, that's nothing. That's nothing. If you really wanted to make healthcare better in this country, you'd make sure that everyone had healthcare in this country, and you would approve some type of universal healthcare plan or Medicare for all plan so that everyone is covered. The little crumbs that Joe Biden is doing, we're just going to deduct some of these prescription drugs, and then it's for certain people. Those are crumbs, and you deserve more as a taxpayer and as an American, period. So he wouldn't even be in this situation if he was doing the things that the American people actually want. Biden scooped up endorsements from at least 15 members of the Kennedy political family during a campaign stop Thursday in Philadelphia. A spokesperson for the Michigan Secretary of the state's office said the Natural Law Party, a minor party with a line on the state's ballot, nominated Kennedy at the convention. Now, this is going to be interesting considering the fact that Michigan, they actually started the uncommitted votes campaign, right? Remember, they had all those people come out and voted in the primary. They voted uncommitted. You know, I think a lot of those people are still not going to vote for Joe Biden in November, especially those that are part of the Muslim community. But I also don't think they're going to vote for RFK Jr. either once they start to hear his rhetoric in reference to Israel and Gaza. So this will be interesting. Kennedy faces an expensive and time-consuming process to get on the ballot in all 50 states and the District of Columbia without the backing of a political party. Michigan is the second state Michigan is the second state after Utah to affirm that his name will be presented to voters. His campaign or an allied super PAC say they've collected enough signatures in several other states, including battlegrounds of Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and North Carolina, but they haven't yet been validated by election officials. So that's what's happening there. However, I did see a poll with Trump, Biden, and RFK for Arizona, and that poll actually had a three-way tie. That was a couple weeks ago. I will have to check that information again. But Arizona, I told you, I wouldn't be surprised if Biden didn't win Arizona this time around, mainly because of the immigration issue, mainly because of the border issue. I will see that going towards Donald Trump, to be honest. I don't think he's going to win Georgia again. I could also see that going towards Donald Trump. People in Atlanta are not too happy with him. And I told you guys to question Nevada. Nevada isn't guaranteed to remain blue. It's not even a dark blue. It's a light blue. So Trump could even pick up a state like Nevada again because of the issue at the border. North Carolina, I think, is going to remain red. But let me tell you what I think is really happening here. And then we'll get into this clip from News Nation about Kennedy's new ballot access. I want you to hear how they talk about this. Is really interesting. Here's what I think is happening, folks. I have this gut-wrenching feeling. And it's the same kind of feeling that I used to have when I felt like I was getting a little nauseous when I was a kid. I really believe that they are trying to pressure RFK Jr. to drop out of this campaign, not just by using the Kennedy family to do so, not just by getting environmental organizations to also ask him to drop out. That's a doozy. I think some of these people are paid. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these people are paid off. There's that. There will be others that they bring forward. You have to remember the petition that Ro Khanna filed to convince his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, to drop out and to work with the Democratic Party. She put him on blast for that. Rightfully so. But something tells me, and if I'm wrong, I'll come back and eat my words. Something tells me that RFK Jr. is going to drop out. And I don't think it's something that'll happen like this month or next month, but something tells me they're going to put enough pressure his way that he may drop out. Now, what's going to happen after he drops, if he does drop out? Let's get into this clip from News Nation first, and then I'm going to tell you my prediction, because I really do think getting RFK Jr. to drop out, I think that's actually going to backfire against the Biden administration. Let's get into this clip here.
By the way, President Biden wrapped up his 3-day swing in Pennsylvania with an endorsement from one of the most prominent families in all of Democratic politics.
We want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to 4 more years.
I don't want to become emotional, but what an incredible honor to have the support of the Kennedy family.
Not in attendance, of course, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who himself is running as an independent in November. Now, while he didn't get his siblings' endorsement, and that got all the headlines today. I want to say not all, but maybe most, right? The family comes out for Biden. It's not a good look. Nobody wants to see that, right? But I thought there might have been a bigger story, and tell me if I'm wrong, that RFK Jr. got ballot access in the state of Michigan. And if Joe Biden wants to win re-election, you both are saying yes, he's got to win the state of Michigan. So what is it?
And that's part of the reason why they probably came out publicly like they did. This is what I'm trying to tell you guys. They know there was a chance that he was going to get ballot access in some of these swing states.
Mean that now RFK Jr. is mixing it up in maybe the most important state in the election?
I mean, I think the Democrats have always seen him as the biggest threat to Biden's reelection promises or hopes. And so, of course, they're going to be upset that he's in Michigan. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. They've been hanging out with the Bidens, very cozy at St. Patrick's Day pictures, vacationing together. I mean, the Kennedys are all about making sure they distance themselves and coming out vocally. So, of course, there's no headlines on it. I'm not surprised at all. What I do think is so interesting is how RFK Jr. responded is precisely why the juxtaposition between how he responded and how Biden's all of that response would have been is precisely why Americans are so tired of the discourse, except for Max. Everyone hates how divisive everything is right now. So he responds with kindness.
Yeah, we could put the statement up on the screen. He wasn't hostile to his family at all.
He took the high road. He did the Michelle Obama.
One way to put it. Okay, so obvious. What concerns you more? That.
Let me read his statement. I hear some of my family will be endorsing President Biden today. I am pleased they are politically active. It's a family tradition. We are divided in our opinions, but united in our love for each other. Oh man, let's talk about united for our love for each other, because when I talk about united for our love for each other, if his family did not agree with him running for a president and they do support Joe Biden, best thing they could have done was sit back and be quiet. Best thing they could have done was just sit and chill, not make any public statements, and just stay to themselves. That's the best thing they could have done for someone that they love and care so much about. Not this public embarrassment that they did, the speech that they did. We're going to support Joe Biden. I'm just like, get out of here, man. Get out of here. And, they talk about RFK and JFK. Would RFK and JFK be okay with someone like Joe Biden if they were alive today? They were to the left of Joe Biden. You think they would be okay with Joe Biden and his history as a politician in this country? You think they would approve of Joe Biden taking all that money from the Israeli lobby? You think they'd be fine with that? Do you think that they would approve of the way that Joe Biden is handling Israel's assault on Gaza? I don't think they would be okay with that. They could have just stayed quiet.
As Democrats, that Biden. Well, let me put it this way: Michigan, RFK Jr. on the ballot. Is that the real story today?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, right now in the polling, we're seeing that Kennedy specifically is polling somewhat equally from both the Trump camp and the Biden camp. But what we're also seeing is that in an absence of any third-party candidate, Joe Biden is doing better than Donald Trump would under the same circumstances. So I wouldn't be surprised if you start to see negative messaging, towards RFK.
That's happening already.
Yeah.
No, I mean like real money behind it. On
You heard what he just said? He let the game get away, right? He said, no. I mean, real money behind it, because they've had negative messages about RFK from the day that he announced his campaign when he was still running the Democratic Party, right? But now he's like, no, with real money behind it. So there he is giving the game away, letting you know it's all backed by money, big money.
TV. We're not seeing anything on TV in these swing states yet. And they'll do, and they should do, whatever's necessary to win this thing.
RFK Jr. on the ballot in Michigan.
Well, I agree here. I think that, the Biden camp can't lose sight of RFK as someone who is pulling support steadily. And it could be a challenge for Democrats, especially when you think about a state like Michigan with really narrow margin of victory. Democrats have to make sure that they're continuing to solidify their base, but also keeping their eye on RFK and his supporters. And if they need to continue to kind of galvanize that support and bring them back home, so be it. I think that's got to be a part of their strategy.
Give you the last.
What do you mean bring them back home? See, this is an assumption that these people, the people that are supporting RFK Jr., were Democrats. Some of these people are registered independents. Some of these people are just tired of the two-party system. Some of these people, some of the people that are supporting RFK Jr. told me they actually haven't voted since Barack Obama, since 2008. But now they're thinking about getting back in. They'll vote for him, but they don't want to vote for the two-party system. She says, bring them back home. Listen, when you leave the home, you leave for a reason. How many of you, when you left like your parents' home, you were like, look, I'm an adult now. I'm doing my own thing. No going back. When you leave the home, you leave for a reason. And she's trying to she said, come back home. If they wanted to be there, they would be there. What a mess.
Right here, Mick.
Michigan's a big story. It is. But Max is right. The question is not what Kennedy's pulling. It doesn't make a difference if he's pulling 2% or 22%. It makes a difference who he's pulling from. If he's pulling 2% and it's all from Joe Biden, that's a real problem.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you for watching.
Okay, so let me tell you what I think is happening here. Yeah, Terry said all political theater. Yeah, let me explain something here. I have this feeling RFK Jr. is going to drop out. Someone mark this. Today is April 19th. I have this feeling RFK Jr. is going to end up dropping out, because this is just the beginning of some of the pressure from the outside, the environmental organizations, the family, which we knew the family was going to, they were against this from day one. Even when he was running as a Democrat, they were still against it, right? So we knew that was coming. But I believe there are going to be more organizations and more, people that publicly come forward to shame him, try to embarrass him. We're going to hear all kinds of things that are going to come out, things that we probably have never heard of before, to convince him to drop out. And I was convinced of that the moment that I saw that petition from Ro Khanna asking his running mate to leave RFK Jr.'s campaign and to come back home, as she said, to the Democratic Party. And I really believe this. And he may not be the only one. And it's a hot mess. Whether you support his campaign or not, I don't support his campaign, but I just think it's ridiculous what this country is doing. It's ridiculous what our government is doing and not letting people just run, in these elections freely. You got to come out and smear them and say that they shouldn't do this. And, none of this would have happened if they actually would have let the people who were running the Democratic Party actually have a real debate and a real campaign. That's why he left the Democratic Party and started to run as an independent. But the reality is, folks, they are still very scared because he's polling double digits in some of the swing states. And I don't care what the national poll tells you about Donald Trump and Joe Biden right now. At the end of the day, this comes down to those swing states. It comes down to Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Did I miss one? It comes down to the swing states. So when you look at these polls and it says, oh, well, Joe Biden's at 47% and Donald Trump's here, or Donald Trump's leading, about none of that matters. What matters are the swing states. So you have to look at how those candidates are polling in those swing states, and that can make a big determination. Now, that being said, I told you most of the RFK Jr. supporters that I've spoken to said that if RFK Jr. is not in this race come November, they will support Donald Trump. Some may stay home. It's just very, very, very telling. Did I forget Arizona? I forgot Arizona, Fiat, Arizona. But we know who's not going to drop out. And that's right, live the dream. Jill won't drop out. Right. She's done this before. When have you known the Green Party candidate to drop out of the presidential race? So I don't know, guys. I don't know, but it is something. So he's on the ballot in Michigan, and they are very afraid.